Hello, I'm Robert Redford. I can understand why oil companies love tar sands. There's a lot of money to be made by strip mining and drilling the dirtiest oil on the planet. But why should the rest of us pay the price? Developing the Canadian tar sands is destroying our great northern forest at a terrifying rate. It's producing enough carbon pollution to wreak havoc with our climate for decades to come. And the pipelines that carry this toxic tar sands fuel are a direct threat to our own drinking water supplies. So if you ask me, tar sands oil is exactly the kind of dirty energy we can no longer afford. It may be great for oil companies, but it's killing our planet. There's no energy security in that. The saner choice is clean energy. But we're not going to get it unless millions of us demand it. So please join me in saying no to tar sands oil and yes to clean energy.
And that's the whole thing, is that there's a very small minority of human beings benefiting from the total catastrophic destruction of our pristine environment.
Exactly, but it's nice to see that big-name celebrities are coming out. Neil Young came out and said that the tar sands area looked like Hiroshima.
And then we got Daryl Hannah on the other side of the border getting arrested when she's standing in front of pipelines. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Stay tuned. Let's take a look. It's the Canadian government in action. We've got it.
The Prime Minister has these pipe dreams when it comes to promoting Canada's oil industry, and now he's taking new steps to make them a reality. The federal government is making a new push in British Columbia, where protests and more protests define Enbridge's proposed Northern Gateway and the planned expansion of Kinder Morgan's Trans Mountain pipeline. First Nations. Sources tell CBC News the Prime Minister's special representative on pipeline issues, Douglas Eiford, reported last month that discussions with First Nations are stalled. So Stephen Harper is dispatching wave after wave of senior cabinet ministers to meet with them. Joe Oliver, the Natural Resources Minister, Environment Minister Leona Agluka, Aboriginal Affairs Minister Bernard Valcourt, and others. Federal officials insist they are coming to listen, but underscore the proposed pipelines are crucial to the government's effort to export more oil out of landlocked Alberta to Asian markets. The head of Kinder Morgan, Ian Anderson, says the federal government needs to engage British Columbians.
I think they're doing that. I think they're defining process.
This is the second front in the Prime Minister's efforts to pump up stalled pipeline proposals. As we first reported, Harper wrote Barack Obama to propose joint strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, a concession intended to win the president's approval for the Keystone XL pipeline. Peter?
All right, Chris, thank you. Chris Hall in Ottawa tonight.
So there's Stephen Harper doing his job as the front man for the American oil companies.
Exactly.
Okay, like he's our prime minister, isn't he?
I think he's a corporate shill is what I think he is.
Darren Fiddler wrote an awesome editorial in the local newspaper where he said that maybe we might want to keep some of this oil for ourselves for the future.
This might be a good idea because we don't have a national energy policy.
Well, we don't have a national education policy, but far be it from me to point out any logic in what's going on. You're tuned into Video Radio. What do you got for me, brother?
Well, apparently he's not just not listening to people, he's not listening to the scientists either. He's trying to keep them from talking to us.
Stephen Harper, right here with us. Thanks for tuning in.
Hundreds of people stood up for science today, demonstrating with lab coats and stethoscopes in hand in more than a dozen Canadian cities.
Evidence-based decision-making. When do we want it? After peer review.
Monday's nationwide rallies, organized by the nonpartisan group Evidence for Democracy, is the science community's latest attempt to draw the public's attention to funding cuts and to pressure the Harper government to create new science-friendly policies.
We need a science policy that maintains a world-class basic science and an industry open to new ideas.
The Harper government has been criticized for reducing funding to science and technology, downsizing research labs, and shifting the focus from evidence-based science to industries.
Despite this government's claims that cuts to the public service are only affecting back office jobs, cuts to essential scientific programs and services have undermined our society's scientists' ability to serve the public good.
While researchers rallied outside the Peace Tower, the NDP science and technology critic introduced a motion to support scientists' right to speak freely. The motion builds on report scientists are being muzzled.
We call today on the Harper government to unmuzzle Canada's federal research scientists.
While funding on paper looks the same, scientists say government grants are increasingly earmarked for industry-specific needs, sending some researchers looking for innovative work outside of Canada.
Public science is in a state of emergency. Reinvestment in Canada's science and research capacity must be a national priority.
Annie Bergeron-Oliver, iPolitics.
So Harper doesn't like to talk to anybody. He doesn't like to listen to anybody.
You know, and, you know, his national science minister is a procreationist.
But it's like, yeah, Joe Oliver's not sure about global warming.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Seriously. Like, where are we getting logic here? Okay. I just want to know, because scientists, that's who I'm turning to make good decisions.
Yes, but as long as it's industry-based decisions that they're making that promote Canadian resource extraction, then they get funding.
Which only benefits a very small minority of American companies.
You know, around the world, Harper's making us look like idiots all over the place. I mean,
yeah.
He's even not speaking to the UN. I mean, he's really dropping the ball with them.
Now, you know, what would really help is if we had a clip on that, right?
Oh, I do have somebody making a few comments on that.
Critics say the Prime Minister has disengaged Canada from the United Nations, but on one cause here, he is very much a champion. The Prime Minister was center stage for a global project he has helped spearhead, improving the health of women and young children in developing countries, the mortality rate far above that in countries like Canada. Harper is driving the United Nations to be accountable to its commitments. And I'm delighted, Bill. It was a busy day for Harper, meeting with Bill and Melinda Gates and other leaders at the United Nations. But where the Prime Minister was conspicuously absent was here, the General Assembly's temporary quarters, where other world leaders are speaking this week.
We should be there. We should be rolling up our sleeves, doing our part, joining others to reform the UN. But vacating it will not help at all.
In the last 7 General Assemblies, Harper has spoken but once, in 2010, in Canada's disappointing failed bid for a seat on the UN Security Council. But Canada has become an inconsistent participant in areas such as peacekeeping, according to a group of Canadian international specialists. Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird, who has been a harsh critic of the UN in the past, was himself engaged at the UN today on the issue of forced marriages. He defends Canada and the Prime Minister's role at the UN.
The Prime Minister's focus on child and maternal health today is phenomenal. My department and my focus on the campaign against early and forced marriage, these are tangible things that will make a real difference, and Canada will have its statement on Monday.
And there is one area in which Stephen Harper does receive wide praise here for his initiative on women and children in need. Previous prime ministers have also not spoken at the UN General Assembly some years, but the last 2 years, Stephen Harper has been in New York during the General Assembly and still skipped it. And some critics say that he should seize the opportunity to put Canada on that world stage.
However, I'm going to say it's okay if Mr. Harper doesn't represent us on the world stage. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I know, but he's going to leave it to the hands of someone like Baird.
Oh, man. But Baird, we've got video of Baird getting a non-response in the UN.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, like, even countries that are kind of generally hated got applause, and then Baird gets up on there and nothing. Crickets.
I know. But, you know, it's interesting. He's getting kudos for his work with women and children in developing countries while ignoring the conditions here in Canada.
When they loaded that story on CBC on Facebook, there were over 100 comments that said, well, what about our natives? What about our impoverished or 300,000 Canadian homeless this winter?
We can't talk about that. We got to look good to the world, but we're not doing that either.
No, if you paid attention to the first part of the program, you'll notice we have a bit of a problem. Now, domestically, yes.
Well, next month coming up is Remembrance Day.
So we do have to run a couple of clips here right now. This is kind of serious stuff because veterans are being left in the cold.
For 22 years, Terry Collins served in Canada's military. His last tour, the fight in Afghanistan.
With PTSD, there's different stages of it. Right now I seem to be in an avoidance stage where I just put things aside and deal with them later. Well, later never comes.
Collins' therapy is coordinated through the Veterans Affairs Office in Sydney, Nova Scotia. it's set to close.
Halifax is the next office closest, which is 5 hours away.
To keep up with what it calls changing demographics, the federal government is closing 9 regional offices. Veterans who use the services at offices from Newfoundland to BC will now have to head to the next closest one. But most of them aren't close at all. Thousands of veterans are affected by the move. The union representing them is launching a campaign asking the government to reverse its decision. Now, according to the government, veterans won't always have to access Veterans Affairs offices for help. They can go to about 600 Service Canada locations like this one. But veterans we spoke with say that just isn't the same. Service Canada workers aren't trained to handle veterans' issues. Conservative MP Aaron O'Toole sits on the Veterans Affairs Committee. He says he'll take what he's heard back to the committee.
Can we keep corporate memory from some of the offices that are closing? I think we can do this in a way that doesn't impact service.
Veterans aren't confident their voices will be heard. This decision comes after budget cuts to Veterans Affairs and a report from the Veterans Ombudsman that criticized the new Veterans Charter. Vashi Kapelos, Global News.
Aaron Bedard escaped death in Afghanistan, but nothing prepared him for the battle back home. Traumatic brain and spinal injuries, PTSD. A veteran at just 39, facing a grim financial future. The new Veterans Charter replaced the old system in 2006, a pension for life replaced with a lump sum payment and other allowances. But wounded vets have to fight for every last penny. Now an urgent call for immediate action from the Veterans Ombudsman, who says the system is forcing hundreds of the most frail and severely disabled vets to retire in poverty.
What we don't want to see is another long extended review, because the new Veterans Charter has been reviewed to death.
Guy Perrin is recommending an overhaul at a cost of over $1 billion. Among his recommendations, ensure veterans over 65 get 70% of their pre-retirement salary, more career transition support, and compensation for family caregivers.
They're not asking for the Rolex watch or the trip to Florida. They're asking for financial dignity to be able to look after themselves.
In anticipation of this report, the minister announced a comprehensive review of the charter last week. Some improvements were already made in 2011. After 7 years of fighting, veterans groups are willing to give that a chance.
We're going to make damn sure that the issues that are confronting our veterans today are dealt with in a comprehensive manner during this review. And if they fail to do so, if they ignore the plight of the wounded, we're going to stand up. We're going to call them on it.
In the meantime, Aaron Bedard has joined a class action lawsuit in BC.
This is the last course of action, and it's the one that can guarantee that both parties come to the table.
At least now, there's hope of another way. Shirley Engel, Global News, Ottawa.
So, you know, if you're loyal to the government and you sign up, you're going to be left in the cold.
Oh, they'll just kick you under the bus.
Okay. Anything, you know, poverty issues are not covered by the Canadian government on a federal level and ignored abjectly at the provincial and the municipal level.
Well, you know, closing Veterans Affairs offices to save money for what?
For weapons.
Oh, yes.
And remember, prisons we don't need.
Oh, yes. And those Arctic patrol ships that cost, 40 times what they should.
What is it? Wait, I got it. Stealth snowmobile.
Oh, yeah, we need those.
Yeah, I know. And then Arctic sovereignty. We've got 15 guys in igloos up north, but, we are looking at climate change, so that's going to change things up a little bit. We got to start taking care of things at home, and that's why we're doing what we're doing to take care of things at home, because the government and banks just don't care. We've started up the Municipal Sustainability Project. We've got a YouTube video coming out here, October the 24th. We're doing some meetings. Make sure you sign up for that one.
Don't forget that tomorrow is the March Against Monsanto.
That's right. So hopefully we get this up in time for that one. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbeth.
Don't forget to make sure that you get out and you start standing up for what's right, because people standing up are changing the way the world is working. And, of course, we're urging you to start your own radio station so you don't have to listen to us. We've got documentaries coming up, too.
Freeloaders and Warriors and Thieves.
Those are all coming up in November and February of 2014. So remember, you can help out at Radio Free Canada. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Make sure you stay tuned and get informed. Don't take our word for it. Use your noggin and that one brain cell that's functioning and check our facts. We're going to be right back. We got more to come.